Okay, welcome everybody. I know that we're going to have some people here from many different time zones joining us. So good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. And thank you for taking the time from your schedule to join me and these three inspiring alumni for the CLGI 2024 Virtual Open House. I'm Heather Nolin. I'm the founder and creative director of the Creative Leaders Guild, or the CLG, and its signature blue chip program, the Creative Leaders Guild Institute, or the CLGI. In our time together, we'll learn about both. And first, I'll give you an overview of the Guild and the program and logistics of the application. And then the alumni, Carrie Cushman, Chandra Williams, and Robin Gose, will share a bit about their decision to participate and experiences in the program, the impact the program had on them personally and professionally, and they'll also offer some advice for applying or for those who are still deciding to apply. We're also joined by Erin Glavin, who will be working behind the scenes to keep the webinar running smoothly. So thank you, Erin, for being here. This webinar is meant to be really more of a conversation than a presentation. So please ask questions at any point using the Q&A feature, which is found at the bottom of your Zoom window. The presenters and I will try to get to all the questions in the course of the discussion, but if not, we have set aside some time at the end of the call to answer any lingering questions. And before we dive in, I just have a little more housekeeping. First of all, the webinar is being recorded, and a link to the recording together with some other resources will be sent to everyone who registered. I hope that you will find all of this useful. And please feel free to share the link and resources with anyone you think would be interested in applying. Also, by the end of probably this week, the recording will also be available publicly in the link to on the website. Okay, so just quickly an overview. For the last 20 years, I've been working in academia and museums and serving on numerous nonprofit boards. And during this time, I discovered that many women in these areas are really hungry for a network of female colleagues pursuing similar goals in which they can grow personally and professionally. And I also realized that museums, libraries, archives, cultural and conservation centers, performing arts organizations, and other arts and culture humanities nonprofits often face similar challenges, yet they rarely engage outside of their silo and often rarely collaborate for mutual benefit. So I founded the Creative Leaders Guild in 2021 as a community for visionary female leaders in the nonprofit sector to both meet their need for connection and as a way to foster collaboration among the organizations. And I modeled the Guild after the merchant and craft guilds that I studied as part of my doctorate in Renaissance art history. Like these guilds, the CLG offers members a collaborative and compassionate environment to share expertise, expand professional networks, and forge genuine camaraderie. So the difference between the CLG and the CLGI is the Guild is the larger community into which the CLGI alumni gain access at the conclusion of the program. And membership is currently limited to alumni of the Creative Leaders Guild Institute. And as you know, applications are now open for the 2024 cohort. So just a word about some details and logistics. The CLGI is a highly competitive 9-week intensive program for women in leadership positions in nonprofits who are entering their first leadership role or have been in their current position for 7 years or fewer. Applicants can be executive or artistic directors, deputy directors, head of a division or a department, or a project lead. Really anyone managing people and resources and who has the ability to influence policy and affect change in their organization. You could come from a library or archive, house, science, natural history or art museum, ballet or opera or theater company, conservation or cultural center, historical society, or an arts supporting entity such as a foundation or a granting organization. And if you're unsure if you qualify, you can contact me directly. And my email address, and I should have put this in my signature, heather@nolinconsulting.com, and that will be included in the email follow-up. The hybrid format of the CLGI weaves together 6 weeks of interactive online engagement, 2 weeks of implementation and reflection, and a week in residence at a private ranch in Wyoming. This year, the program officially begins on Monday, April 29th and concludes on Friday, June 28th. The program fee is $7,500 and includes all program materials, activities, accommodations, local program transportation, and meals. And as I mentioned, the fee also includes membership, ongoing membership in the Creative Leaders Guild. Each participant will be responsible for costs associated with travel to and from Wyoming. A limited number of scholarships are available and are awarded based on financial need, as well as geographic and organizational diversity. Payment plans are also available, and you can look at the application guidelines on the website creativeleadersguild.com/application. You can find more information there. The deadline, including the one required recommendation, is due by midnight Eastern Standard Time, Friday, February 9th, 2024, which is just less than a month away. And again, if you have specific questions about the application or the process, feel free to drop those into the Q&A at any time. So I'll let the alumni tell you a little bit more about what the program can do, but I'll just conclude by telling you what sets the CLGI apart from the dozens of other leadership programs. First of all, it's for women only, and I know that this is not unique, but it really is an essential part of the program's success, and I hope that the panelists will comment on this. It's really about self-leadership as much as organizational and staff leadership. It helps you focus on yourself as much as your role in the organization, with the thought being that you become a better leader outward-facing if you are a better leader inward-facing. We have really some top presenters from across the nonprofit sector that engage with, but not just lecture to, the participants. And last year's presenters included the former head of marketing at the Apollo Theater, the chief counsel for Sony Pictures, who is now works in the nonprofit arts sector, an artist, author, and professor of art business at NYU, the head of advancement for the Vanderbilt University School of Nursing, and a board member of the Nashville Opera and Nashville Philharmonic Orchestra, and others. Another thing that sets it apart is the confidentiality. Presenters and attendees all sign a confidentiality agreement, which allows participants to be completely open, vulnerable, and honest with each other, and then really in turn with themselves. The Creative Leaders Guild Institute allows participants to reclaim, rediscover, or really uncover their creativity as a means to achieve personal and professional goals. And again, as I observe through my career in arts and nonprofit world, there's a common trend. The higher up you ascend in an organization, typically the further away you get from the creativity and the fulfilling aspects of the profession that attracted you to it in the first place. And when I think of this paradox, I usually think of my friend Maria. She started out her career in the medical field as a trauma nurse at the Holy Name Medical Center in Fort Lee, New Jersey. And she was really ambitious, and of course still is. And her drive to success pushed her to consider what would it look like if she climbed the traditional ladder of success in her profession. And in her case, it meant becoming a hospital administrator, a consultant, or another variant that would have pulled her away from direct and regular contact with her patients. And she'd no longer be able to spend her days engaged in helping people, which was the very work that brought her to the profession in the first place. But luckily for her patients, she chose to remain a nurse and to continue to care for them heroically and compassionately. But what if she had found a way to quench her desire for greater responsibility, stability, and frankly, let's face it, a larger paycheck that a leadership position higher up in the organization would have afforded her? So imagine that most of you in the nonprofit world who are in leadership positions understand this conundrum very deeply. Did you start out as a visual or performing artist, a curator, an educator, a content creator, or an innovator in some way? Have you had to leave some aspect of this work behind, perhaps leaving yourself behind in turn, to take on greater responsibility, to lead people and an organization, and let's face it, to earn more money? This program puts you back in touch with a creative part that you may have forgotten or lost, or frankly, never even knew that you had. And you will leverage this creativity and put it into service to become a better leader of yourself, your organization, and the field. And creativity, of course, is not just for Toni Morrison or Pablo Picasso or Niccolo Paganini. It's an essential part of all of us for problem solving innovation, collaboration, and so many other aspects of leadership. And you'll tap into this essence as a participant in this program. And lastly, what sets the CLGI apart is Wyoming. It's a week at a private ranch with your cohort and a few special guests. This year, it's from Sunday, June 9th to Saturday, June 15th. And I'm not going to reveal too much, but I'll just say that you will not be spending your time sitting in a fluorescent lit classroom, which is typically what other leadership programs offer participants as their in-person experience. So I hope this overview gives you a sense of what the CLG and CLGI are, why I created this community and program, who it's for, and how you can apply for entry to the 2024 CLGI cohort. And as I say, please put any specific questions about the application, logistics, or any other part in the Q&A, and we will address those as we go along. So now I will stop talking and we'll turn it over to 3 members of the OG CLGI cohort, Carrie Cushman, Chandra Williams, and Robin Gose. And let me do quick introductions. Carrie Cushman is the Edith Dale Monson Gallery Director and Curator at the Hartford Art School at the University of Hartford. Dr. Cushman is a distinguished museum leader, curator, and educator with a PhD in art history from Columbia University in the histories of photography and contemporary Japanese art. Prior to coming to Hartford, she was the curatorial fellow in photography at the Davis Museum at Wellesley College and recognized for her prolific scholarship. She has curated exhibitions, published catalogs, and received prestigious grants and prizes, including the Japan-US Friendship Commission grant. Carrie contributes to scholarly journals, nurtures emerging talents in photography, and has created interactive educational websites. And her recent publications include Going Viral, Photography, Performance, and the Everyday, and Kumatsu Hiroko, Creative Destruction. Carrie is an avid swimmer, hiker, and self-care maniac who recently finished the execution of the big project, actually, that she was working on during her time at the CLGI, and maybe she'll comment on that when you hear from her. Next is Chandra Williams. She's the executive director of Crossroads Cultural Arts Center in Clarksdale, Mississippi, which is a cultural center that celebrates and revives African and African-American culture, history, and heritage in both the Mississippi Delta and across America, and utilizes the power of art to transform communities. Ms. Williams is an artist, educator, and community healer who teaches, organizes, and speaks out about the process of creating change with a focus on the role of arts in that process. She's an avid drawing teacher and creator of Follow the Edge, a method of teaching observational drawing, which activates right brain awareness for a variety of benefits, including training professionals in the field of autism and facilitating diversity training. Chandra holds a BFA in printmaking and drawing from Washington University in St. Louis, with additional concentrations in critical theory and community education. And Chandra, when I asked your colleagues what it is that they remember most about you from the program, and that they said really that you are the sage, that you really embody this idea of still waters run deep. And we were saying that we have over time sort of invoked, well, what would Chandra do? Because you are so thoughtful. You are so thoughtful and such a really a model of active listening. So we're really glad that you're here.
Thank you.
Robin Gose, finally, is president and CEO of MOXIE, the best named museum, I think, in the country. The Wolf Museum of Exploration and Innovation in Santa Barbara, California. Dr. Gose has been a STEM educator for more than 25 years, dedicated to making science engaging for young learners, fostering their social, cognitive, and emotional growth. She earned a bachelor's degree in geography and environmental resource management from the University of Texas at Austin, and a doctoral degree in educational leadership from the University of California, well, UCLA, where her academic research focused on English language learners' experience in the science classroom. She joined the MOXIE team in 2017 during its inaugural year as Santa Barbara's newest museum, newest hands-on science museum and destination for families. And in her role, she oversees museum operations, finances, fundraising, basically every aspect of the museum as the director, to align with the organization's mission to ignite learning through interaction, to interactive experiences in science and creativity. Robin's also an active volunteer in her field, serving on a board as a board member for the Association of Science and Technology Center, an ad hoc committee member for the Association of Children's Museum. She frequently presents at conferences, and is also a proposal reviewer for the Institute of Museum and Library Sciences for over a decade. And Robin wanted to make sure that I highlighted the fact that she is an amazing dancer. So thank all three of you for joining us today, and I will happily mute my microphone and allow you to field some questions here. So Robin, why don't I start with you?
All right.
Why the CLGI? What were you looking for when you thought about leadership development, and where were you professionally when you decided to take part in the program?
Great question. I wasn't actually necessarily looking for something, or I didn't know that I was looking for leadership per se, but I was definitely looking for something to spark more creativity in my life. Professionally, I've been in this particular role for about 6 years. I'm still excited by the role, but I also have a young family, and I was really starting to feel that strain of how to balance young family, professional growth, trying to be an active volunteer in my community, in my field, and frankly feeling stretched way too thin. And so when I heard about this particular program, what really resonated with me and made me do that second look and decide to apply, it was that creative leaders part of it, where I thought, yeah, I am creative. I'm not just, the mom packing lunches, and I'm not just the person who's always a little bit late to a meeting and, with the coffee stain on my, like, I am that person, and I want to find her again. So I think that was, it was really having that aspect that drew me to it. And the fact that it was a national program, so that it wasn't just within my local community. I live in a small town, and I didn't necessarily need to build a cohort within my small town. I've got those cohorts and circles and networks, and so I didn't need that, but I did need this national group that focused on that creative leadership and that inward introspection. I think that was what was really important to me too.
Great, thanks. Carrie, did you want to take this one? What were you looking for when this program presented itself? And where were you professionally, and why?
Yeah, I had just started in my new role as director of the Hereford Art School Galleries a little over a year when I started the program. I'd made a pretty big jump from being a curator at a mid-size academic museum to with a staff to running 2 galleries and a small art collection pretty much by myself, and I felt pretty isolated. And so I was really looking for community with other people who understood the particular, specific challenges of this kind of a role, and I certainly found it.
And Chandra, what about you? You, Carrie and Robin both run museums of various types. You do not run a museum. And so why this program, and what were you looking for when you were thinking about leadership development, and really where were you professionally?
Yeah, I was I guess 7 years into my first and so far only position as an executive director of a cultural arts center in a small town. I moved to this town for this position. Um, and so but my position really requires that I'm, connected to the community. So I've spent this time connecting to the community, doing a lot of programming. But I really knew that I wanted to grow in a way that um, was more apparent maybe to me than the community in terms of the vision for the Cultural Arts Center and why I've come here. And so I wanted, like Carrie said, and Robin, I wanted community. Um, I wanted to network outside of my local geographic community. Um, because yeah, it's a small town, and because I think the concepts that I want to materialize at the center are maybe more are sort of global. And I live in a town where there's a lot of international visitors here to Clarksdale. And so I really needed to build those broad networks, um, and bring in some perspectives from a greater sort of horizons, you know, geographically, and put that with my connections with the community here. Um, and also that aspect of connecting with people outside of the small town, you know, environment that I live in. But for me personally too, is really the support, because it's a challenging, you know, position, challenging work that we do. And I needed people who I felt like could understand, you know, what I'm going through in this industry. And I loved that, and I still love that, you know, about the women that I've connected with. I didn't imagine how much they would understand, you know, small things, big things, things that you think you can't even tell somebody, other people are going through as well. So I mean, I feel like I needed it for my personal. I just didn't want to feel alone anymore. Mhm.
Carrie and Robin, I see you nodding away. Let me jump to a question here, because I think that this is a nice segue to kind of follow up on the why this program. Can you and Chandra, why don't we, well, actually, let me jump to you, Carrie. Why don't we address the question of what have you put into practice from the program? So we know why you all decided to take this program at that point in your career. But Carrie, what did you put into practice, and what did you bring back to your role in your organization as a result of the program?
Yeah, well, a lot. But I think one of the most fundamental takeaways for me has been the last thing you spoke about in your introduction, Heather, which was, you know, really thoughtfully implementing creative practices into your work. And I have done this in terms of at multiple levels, my daily routine, but also for the bigger picture projects. So two quick examples. In my day-to-day practice, I have started a daily creative writing exercise. It's 20 minutes of my day that I was sure didn't exist prior to this program. And taking that time to thoughtfully be creative every day has made me calmer. It's made me feel more grounded and present, less frenetic, more focused at work and at home. And yeah, it's almost like expanded time in my day somehow. And then at the bigger picture, over the past few months, I've undertaken a pretty large project, which was to rewrite the statement of purpose and value statements for the galleries that I oversee. And I wanted to do it with our entire community, which felt really unwieldy in theory, but I was able to apply some of the creative activities and exercises that I learned through our speakers and from Heather herself into this program, this mission statement writing program that I created, so that the conversations with the community were focused and productive and energizing and community building rather than unwieldy. And I'm really proud of the progress that I made. And I'm sure it wouldn't have been as successful without those creative activities. So it's been really revelatory, I think, to just come to understand creativity as something that is it's strategic and it's smart. It's not a waste of time at all. And that's really validating.
Great, thanks. Robin, did you want to take this question? What have you put into practice, and what did you bring back to your role and to your organization and to your
Sure.
communities, I guess, in your case too?
Sure. Yeah, I think for me, I really I really relished the opportunity to focus on myself, and to really use this as self-care that as Carrie said, I didn't think that I had time for it in my life before. And so, while I haven't necessarily implemented specific habits or practices per se, it's more of a mindset that I bring to my life that has helped me to kind of, bring down my stress levels, and to kind of stop and pause and think about, okay, um, make the time for the yoga class, or make the time in the work week to be, you know, to write the creative brief, like find the time around the, reading the financial statements and approving the time off, like all of that noise that has to get done. Um, but then also remembering how good it feels to be creative, for creativity's sake, and within the job. I mean, as you were kind of sharing the story about your friend Maria, who was the nurse, it is that same thing. Like, I do this job because I love interactive exhibits and programming and kids and science, and I think reminding myself of that and finding those moments within my work week when I do that, and then just being fully present for those moments, because that's why I do this job. And so I think those are the things. It's really more of that mindset that I've brought to everything. And that's been nice. I can feel it in myself. Um, and I don't know yet that my colleagues would notice it about me, but I notice it about me, and that's enough.
Thanks, Robin. There's a question in the Q&A that I wonder if you could take. There's a question about wondering if the program would or can focus on leadership and connections, particularly with the youth in the creative field. Of course, yes, I agree. It's important that some of us are focusing more on this sector and audiences. And so I know that your particular focus is on younger people. So if you could answer this, but then maybe Chandra, when we get to you, if you can say a little bit about how this program has helped you reach that particular audience as well.
Yeah, I would say with this, this is kind of part of the secret sauce that Heather brings as the, creative leader of this Creative Leaders Guild and the Institute is, Heather is curating this cohort of women, right? Like looking for diverse backgrounds and interests and things like that. And so within our cohort, I was the only person who represented my specific museum field of children's museums, science museums. But that didn't matter. And so, Purity, to kind of address your question, I could have questions, or I could have kind of a challenge that I was facing thinking about youth. And while my cohort colleagues might not have direct experience with that, they were able to offer me some other perspectives that were really helpful, and that helped it to not be an echo chamber, of just, I'm deeply involved within my field with children's museums and science museums. And those are fantastic, supportive communities. And sometimes that can be sort of that echo chamber, right? Where you're just like, oh, well, try, it can be a little bit too much of try this idea because we've tried this idea. And so I appreciated having the diversity of perspectives to think about my own particular unique set of circumstances. And I'll also say that some of the people that you'll meet through this program, not just the cohort, but some of the special guests that Heather brings in, that they have some really unique and fascinating connections with youth in their local communities. And so again, you can kind of glean some great transferable skills and ways of working with kids from meeting those people too.
Thanks, Robin. I think, Purity, baked into your question really is a question about audience and impact and communities. And I think, Robin, your specific community, it already is that sort of youth younger audience. But Chandra, I wonder if you can answer the question about what did you put into practice and bring back into your role, into your organization, and maybe with thinking specifically about this idea of impacting your community.
Mhm. Yeah, well, what I brought back and impacting the community, well, I'm always thinking about impacting the community in positive ways that are also community driven, and which is very much related to what I have put into practice, because for me, in terms of the trainings, there's a lot of things that I'm still putting into practice. A lot of the things that we learned and have been provided materials for, and connected with experts in fields. And I'm still, still in the process of learning from that and acting out on those things that we learned. But on another side of it for me, and something that's so powerful, um, is that my is that part where we use time to really focus on our own passions. And I think that's the part where, and young people are part of my passion. Um, and I can't overstate it. That's what I'm still putting into practice. It was like this experience woke me up again to valuing what I care about, um, to putting time, as the other, lady said as well, to putting time into those things that were important to me, that still are important to me, that were getting buried under the things that I have to do, which are also important. But you don't get that invitation often to say, stop everything. What do you want to do? And why? And now do it. you know, um, and so for me, that connects deeply to youth. I talk a lot about popularizing healthy ideas in the young community through the arts. Um, and so to really just use the tools that we learn to put these things into practical steps and motion. Um, and as well connecting with others, in other members. But I think just really we can get lost sometimes in the day to day, and the important work that we do as well. But yeah, so for me, I really, it not only woke it up, but it also made me, having a community where you feel confident, you can feel confident about your passion, is really, really important and fundamental. And that is not always the case. And I think it was the case here, that each of us could feel excited about whatever is important to us, and talk to each other about it and get input about it. I mean, there were some conversations that changed my life. So, you we know this, but we know it. So I hope I'm answering the question that you asked me.
Thanks, Chandra. Just a quick clarification here. I'm so appreciating everybody reflecting on how this affected them personally, and certainly the program really is about that, kind of tapping into yourself. And I really see that as sort of a point of differentiation, that it's self-leadership more than your role in the organization. But I just want to clarify that this is not some kind of self-help program. It really is kind of directed toward, as you're saying, Chandra, like refocusing yourself. Like, why did you get into this field? Why is connecting with community important to you? And really is kind of that Venn diagram of what are you good at, what's your passion, and what does your organization need? And I really see this as sort of landing right in that. I think William, one of our presenters, called it the strawberry, that sort of spot right in the middle of that Venn diagram, that it sort of checks all those boxes, and it prevents burnout because you're excited about your job every day, that it really is connected to your values and what you what is important to you personally, and also what you're passionate about in the nonprofit field.
Can
So
I,
just go ahead, Chandra.
well, I just wanted to say really quickly on that point. That's so true. I'm fortunate that my position is in alignment with my personal passions. So for me, it's almost an assumption that when my personal passions are reignited, it directly affects my job, my work. But overall, I feel like the program does that, whatever your profession, is.
Great, thank you. So let me just jump back in my presenters, my list of questions here. And Carrie, why don't I just start with you? I outlined earlier, the program is 9 weeks. Actually, when the three of you did, it was 7 weeks. And I listened to your feedback saying we needed a little time to kind of sit and let this stuff absorb. So I've inserted 2 weeks for reflection in there. So it's now 9 weeks. Unlike other leadership programs, it's not asynchronous. All of the engagement with presenters is live. There's obviously some work that needs to be done sort of offline, whether it's leadership assessments or some writing that you have to do, working on projects, meeting with peers and your colleagues to do coaching, meeting with me also for coaching sessions. So Carrie, how did you manage this workload? And how did you manage your time during the program? You said earlier that you thought that you didn't have any more time to sort of squeeze out of your day. How did you actually fit this in? Because I know that this is a big concern for people considering applying for the program.
Yeah, it is and it was a big concern for me when I was considering signing on last year. But I would say that if you are a person who feels like you absolutely do not have the time to do this, then you absolutely need to do it. Because if you start implementing the tools that you're learning as you're learning them, I don't know, it's like time expanded last summer. So that's one thing. But the other point is that, we all have so many commitments, work and then outside of work. Like Robin, I'm a parent, and it feels like outside of the hours from 9 to 5, it is not my own time. So I was really lucky that my spouse was very supportive. And at the beginning of the program, we sat down together and mapped out when he was going to do the childcare so that I could stay at work an extra hour or 2 hours to catch up on things that I missed during the day, or to do preparatory work for whatever Heather had in store for us later on in the week. And it was really validating to give myself that time, but also really important. It is a ton of work, but like I said, it's just the way that your time management shifts after the program and during the program makes it all worth it. So I would just be really intentional about how you plan your time and commit to it.
Robin, did you want to share your experience?
I would just say that, yeah, I was, I, like Carrie, I didn't feel like I had any more time that I could, squeeze out of my day. The program for me started while I was on vacation, which was both a blessing and a curse. And so, like there were some materials that I needed to pack in my suitcase. And I remember my husband looked at me and he was like, "Why are you packing all this stuff? Like it's so heavy." And and I was like, "Because I need it. I need it for my program." And so, so that made it a little bit challenging, but it also kind of set the tone for my family of, this is important to me and I'm going to make time for this. And then at work, same thing. I just made that time non-negotiable. You know, I blocked it on my calendar and I told everybody, no, you can't schedule a meeting over this time. Like, this now becomes something that I'm committed to. And you know, and the Zooms were fun. Like the program is fun. And so it's like you look forward to it. And so you do it, you make the time.
Can you just say a little bit more about sort of the online experience? Because all of you, I think with one exception, people hadn't met each other in person before.
Right.
You were all a bunch of strangers, and you didn't meet each other until I think the 5th or 6th week. So could you just say a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, I mean, you know, we've all been on a gazillion Zoom calls, right? And so I think what made our Zoom sessions different was they had a fast pace to them, right? That they like, we might have a presenter, but then we would quickly go into breakout rooms, but it would be breakout rooms for not a long period of time. And so that way you didn't sort of like start to sputter and like, oh, like, well, what else do we talk about? Instead it was this sort of sprint of time, the short burst, so that you were getting to know each other just enough that you're like, well, I want to know more about what Carrie's doing. Like, I can't wait. And I hope I'm in the breakout room with her next time. And so it was that, so there was just a lot of variety within within the Zoom session. And then all of the presenters were fantastic as well. Excuse me. So I really think that that was nice, that there was a variety of things. You would maybe listen to the presenter, you might see something visually that they had, you would go into a breakout room with 1 or 2 other of your cohort members, you might have time to turn off your screen but stay on and then do some writing. Or so it was this whole blend of activities that you were doing, so you're not just sitting there for 2 hours staring at your computer.
Thanks. And Chandra, I want to give you an opportunity to give us your impressions about the workload. How did you manage things? How did you manage your time in the work?
It was a lot of work, but it was so worth it, like utterly worth it. I I was concerned about the time commitment, because I'm generally a staff of 1. I was really concerned about it. But I knew I needed something along these lines, so I made the time. And when we actually got into those sessions, no question, no doubt, like the information, not only the information, the processes that we learn, the engagement, you know, and it's just, I like I said, part of my management is I'm still working with the material now, but that material is so valuable to me as a person and to my work. And I mean, it's just, I haven't had any other professional development or learning experiences that provided so much depth of value. And so I wanted to be there every time. And maybe there might have been one that I missed part of, and I was so disappointed, you know, that I did. But and you feel the value in your work you know, it's like part of what you already need to be doing anyway.
So it's really kind of integrated in your day to day anyway.
Most definitely.
Great. Just mindful of the time here. We're coming up on about 15 minutes. I just got a couple more questions, but so maybe in, 2 sentences or less. They could be long sentences, maybe with semicolons. But Chandra, why don't I start with you? What advice would you give those on this webinar who either are live or will watch it later, who are considering applying or kind of on the fence?
That's where I was when I learned about it. When I spoke with you one-on-one, Heather, I said that's when I really found out this is what I've been looking for. If I was hesitating, but I would say if there's something that you need, get off of the fence and join it. if there's something that you need, if you, and if you can, if you can do it, because so many of our needs were met that we might not have even known that we had, as well as needs that we knew that we had. And if it wasn't already in the plan, the our network that we made, Carrie, Robin, and the other people who were with us answered so many needs, and we made time and space to do that for each other. So whether that's information, knowledge, community, network, inner stuff, you're going to get something that you need tenfold out of it. And I'm saying that, I'm just saying it because it's the truth.
Robin, did you want to give a word of advice for people who are on the fence or trying to decide?
Yeah, sure. I'll say, when I first learned about the program, I was hearing leadership, and I thought, well, I don't really need leadership training per se. Like, I've got a high level degree in educational leadership, and I've read all the books, and I know all the different leadership styles, and I feel like I've kind of got that one covered. But then when I read more about the program, and when I chatted with Heather about it, and hearing that it was more working on self so that you can show up for your job and your team and your community as a better version of yourself. Once I heard that, and so it wasn't so specific or academic or clinical around like leadership, specific leadership development, then that's what opened it up for me. And like I said, it was the creative part where I was like, oh yeah, there's a creativity element to this. And this is not just about, being a better public speaker or being a better, inspirational team leader. It's like, no, this is about being a better version of me so that my team is inspired and motivated and my community is excited about my vision. And it was all of those things.
Thank you. Carrie?
Yeah, I'll just add one word to what Chandra and Robin said, which is Wyoming. You deserve to go to Wyoming. And I'll leave it that.
Thank you. Robin, what surprised you most about the program? And maybe as a follow-up, no,
Okay. I think what surprised me most was the quick and the deep bonding with the cohort. Obviously I've got friends, I've got female friends and I have sisters and but this was different. And I think, particularly the way that you have framed some of the, like application guidelines of kind of, so that you're gathering people who are at a similar point in their career, maybe at a similar point in life as well, because of that it just creates this very deep sort of sisterhood connection that is not always easy to find among women. We know this, right? We've all been teenage girls, we've all been we've all been through the drama and I'm sure we've also all experienced bad female colleagues before, like all of that baggage we all bring to it. But with this group, there was this immediate kind of mutual respect, confidentiality, excitement. We all came to this because, as Chandra's been saying, we were all looking for some different things, but we were all looking for what this program could provide. And so I think I was so pleasantly surprised by, just those connections and that, just the authentic camaraderie that we established.
Carrie, what about you? Big surprise?
Yeah, I agree with everything Robin just said. And I think just to emphasize even more the fact that we are all coming from such different backgrounds and perspectives, you know, I was probably like the greenest person in our cohort. And frankly, when I saw the list of the other women participating, I was like, oh, I don't belong here. Uh, and I was never treated that way. And just the spirit of um, mentorship, you know, peer-to-peer mentorship that is continuing to this day, and I am confident will continue long into the future, um, was really, yeah, very surprising and a gift.
And Chandra, what surprised you most?
I'm surprised that Carrie thought she was the green one that didn't belong because I thought I was. um, but I did feel that way, but I didn't feel that way at all once it started. And I'm so thankful, you know, for that. I really did. I was like, ooh, you know, these ladies, wow, you know, and so, but what surprised me most was the balance between professional learning, very in-depth and very well done leaders in their industries, you know, that taught us the balance between that and the personal, also very deep, you know, it was like these bullseye, like I didn't know it was going to be this serious. I didn't know it was going to be this deep. I didn't know I was going to learn this much. Oh, that's exactly what I needed. And I'm blown away by the person who's teaching it to me. And as well with the personal connection. So.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you very much. Let's see, just, I guess, one last piece, and I think, Carrie, you answered this in your one word. Favorite part of the program?
Yeah, I mean, Wyoming. And not just because it is a majestic landscape and the activities that you're able to do there are, you know, feel like once in a lifetime. But because it really solidified the bonds that we had already formed in our cohort in the weeks leading up to it online. Bonds that I honestly didn't think could be fostered online, but were, and felt so natural and in place, but then were grounded and solidified when we had that week together in person, a week without all of the other distractions of life, in such a, you know, awe-inspiring location.
Robin, favorite part?
I mean, I would agree with that. It was a gift that I haven't given to myself, certainly since my kids were born. And I think it was, yeah, it was a beautiful setting. It was amazing people, and time to just focus on these other women. Like, yes, you could be by yourself, and that was fine. And we were all there together, and everybody wanted to talk, and sometimes it was serious talk, and sometimes it was funny. But I think it was also a time, yeah, being away from work. You know, I told work I wasn't going to do anything. I also told myself, like, I wasn't going to be distracted by my own personal technology devices. You know, I wasn't going to do social media or the, you know, and so I think that was also a gift that I didn't know how desperately I needed that too. And it was, yeah, that time was invaluable, and I think about it fondly often.
Chandra, what was your favorite part?
Since they already said Wyoming and the connection so that we made with each other, I will say the unmitigated, I guess, exploration of my personal and professional self through our online experiences and work, and the even being called to do that with my colleagues and friends as well, to help me understand myself in ways that I hadn't understood myself before, and then to help me present myself, you know, in the way that I didn't even maybe know that I wanted to. That exploration and the opportunity to explore and then bring out.
And if I could just add to, this is, we've been talking about the online Zoom part and how there's kind of some offline components, and we've talked about Wyoming, but this is a whole program. Heather has designed and has been so thoughtful with attention to detail about all different, whether it's email communications, whether it's, a package in the mail, like there's just all of these little details that make you really feel part of something rather than just, oh, I registered for this webinar and it's happening on Wednesday and I'm, it's so much more than that. So again, kind of one of the questions has been, what if you're on the fence? This is not just, I've signed up for a series of webinars and then there's a trip in Wyoming and whatever. It's greater than that.
And if I may, I would say it's honestly a transformative process. And what you said, and that was the word I was thinking. It's a holistic experience. That word wasn't used, but that's what it was. And there's the professional, there's the personal, there's the creative, there's the deep, there's the surface, all of it. And I don't think I've had many experiences that do that so well in such a professional way.
Well, my favorite part of the program is all of you. For me, you're the first cohort. This was an idea that I had that really grew out of my own experience as well. Moving up the ladder, similar to my friend Maria in the medical profession, that it felt, you kind of get further and further away. And as part of my consulting work, interacting with so many female leaders, and everybody saying explicitly they wish they had a community. So to hear all of you saying all these great things about the program that I really hope is encouraging other people to participate. That's my favorite part, is seeing something actually happen. I created the framework, but releasing it out into the world and then having all of you really live in it is really the best part for me. And I also thank you for all the great feedback that you've given, which now has improved it for this next iteration. And I hope to continue to do that into the future. So, with that, I'm just looking, we've got a couple of minutes left. I think that we have addressed all of the Q&A questions, but any final thoughts? Actually, let me just say, just as a reminder, and we will put this in the email that goes out as a follow-up. Anybody can please contact me directly, and my email is heather@nolinconsulting.com, and Nolin is NOLIN, nolinconsulting.com. And the website for the Creative Leaders Guild is just that, creativeleadersguild.com. And then for the Institute and for information about the application, it's creativeleadersguild.com/institute. And again, all of that will be in the follow-up email. But Carrie, Robin, Chandra, I really appreciate your time. And Aaron, thank you very much for helping us in the background and keeping time. And I look forward to seeing you all again in person at our next meeting. And I know that we've got something on the calendar for this weekend, and then also for later in the month to kind of keep us all connected. So thank you, everybody. And thank all of you who attended live and who will be watching this into the future. Application deadline is February 9th, 2024, which includes one recommendation. So any final thoughts or words, Carrie, Robin, Chandra, before we say goodbye?
Thank you.
Just thank you. Yeah.
And that's to the program, today and just the whole thing. Very amazing.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, attendees, for joining us live. And please reach out. Thank you.
Join us.